So today we will learn about acute osteomyelitis. And acute osteomyelitis, as we all know, it's infection of bones. The term osteomyelitis was given first by Nilleton, and he said that it's in fact inflammation of bone and marrow, because these are the two constituents of a bone. And we also should not forget about periosteum, which is the outer soft tissue covering of the bone. So it was Waldvogel who gave this type of classification, and the classification was based on duration. That is, you call it acute when it's less than 2 weeks, you call it subacute when the duration is 2 to 4 weeks, and you call it chronic when the period has passed well beyond 4 weeks. But based on the mode of spread, which is probably more clinical and more informative, we have given it 3 types of classifications. That is hematogenous, that is from a distant infective focus. And as we all know that the process of osteomyelitis must start in the metaphyseal region of the bone, and most of the patients are of childhood age. And metaphyseal region, you know, that is the region which is just adjacent to the epiphyseal region, that is end of the bone. We will come to this point, that how this metaphysis is more vulnerable than other regions. Then we have direct inoculation from open wounds or fracture that start from any site of bone. The site of bone which is harboring, which is exposed to outside and which has seeded the germs, they give rise to osteomyelitis, and this is the picture you come across usually in adults. And then infection occurring in a vascularly compromised tissue, that is diabetic foot, and of course this is usually in adults. Then we have Searle-Mayer classification, that is status, and this has 2 things in consideration, that is status of bony anatomy in ward and protective status of the host. We all know, if you classify we have 3 types of hosts, that is a normal host, then immunocompromised host, and then prohibitive. And we call it diabetic type of classification. People come under this classification. So status of bony anatomy, that needs further clarification. Status of bone anatomy is, if we call it stage 1, then stage 1 is the culmination of infection in the medullary region of the bone. You see the pinkish region of the medullary region is the area where infection has first started, and that has given rise to an abscess. So that is the stage 1. Then what we call it in stage 2, then it has just become more spread, and you see the spread has become inward the cortex of the bone. The infection which was earlier in medullary canal, that has, so this is in fact a stage of osteitis. So myelitis, osteitis. Then in stage 3, what we call is the infection has just traversed the cortical boundaries and it has reached the subperiosteal region. And stage 4 is this myelitic portion, it has spread in all the directions of the has become circumferential. So this type of staging we come across, and this is the Sierni-Mayer classification of staging of acute osteomyelitis. Then coming to pathogenesis. What happens? The start of infective process that takes place in metaphysis. Why metaphysis? Because we know that metaphysis is the part of the bone which is having maximum activity. And what I'll show you in the next diagram, near to the epiphysis, the arteriolar system is so disposed that this is like a lady's hair pin. There is abrupt bending of the arteriolar system, and this leads to stasis of blood, diminution in its speed of flow, and this type of stasis, blood stasis, it gives rise to bacterial seeding. And if this seeded bacteria has overpowered the host immunity, then the process of infection and subsequent inflammation starts in the local metaphyseal region. That is the region why we, as a rule, in hematogenous osteomyelitis, we get this metaphyseal start of the disease, acute osteomyelitis. Then what happens? It incites inflammatory process, necrotic process, and of course the abscess formation. Mind you, this abscess is within the four walls of cortex. The whole cortical wall is so strong and very firm, very bony hard. So a small amount of abscess formation in the medullary cavity, that gives rise to much more increase of intramedullary pressure. And that too in a closed compartment. This is the reason why the patient of acute osteomyelitis, at its presentation, they are showing toxic symptoms. They are very febrile, they are very restless, the swelling, local swelling is there, local pain is there, warmth is there. So all these things, they tell us a story that the patient, the boy, is very toxic. And then the pus, which was localized in the medullary canal, passing through the Bottomless canal, it now becomes subperiosteal space. It comes into the subperiosteal space. So this, in nutshell, is the pathogenesis of acute osteomyelitis. So we see the infection which was seeded in the metaphyseal region because of the inflammatory process, necrosis, there is pus formation, and this pus in a compact zone is showing intense intramedullary pressure, and this is the stage of toxicity in the patient. And finally, the pus finds its way through the Bottomless canals to the subperiosteal region. So, and this is the pictorial depiction of what I just told you. This is the longitudinal section where the hairpin bend arrangement of arteriolar system is nicely shown, and as you see in the how does a hairpin look like, because of abrupt U-turn of the vasculature, there is some amount of stasis, and this stasis leads to seeding of the microorganism. And once the microorganism has found its place because of after overpowering the host immunity, this has incited the process of inflammation, necrosis, and then pus formation, and ultimately because of intense rise of intramedullary pressure, this pus finds its way through the Walkman's canal outside in the subperiosteal space, forming a subperiosteal abscess. And simultaneously we see that the periosteum, which was nicely tethered to the cortex of the bone at the site of abscess, is slightly elevated. This is an important finding which we will see later on. Then what are the pathogens? Let me tell you, Staph aureus is the main culprit in 80 to 90% of the cases. Streptococci OB are usually seen in 0 to 6 months of patients. Haemophilus influenzae is usually seen in patients of 6 months to 4 years. But let me remind you that we have received this HIV vaccine for Haemophilus, and Haemophilus vaccine has shown the picture altogether. And now we see Haemophilus influenzae as the culprit very, very rarely. Then we have Salmonella osteomyelitis. I must tell you at this juncture that sickle cell disease, you know that the trait of sickling features in the red blood cells of the patient, that gives rise to a different type of osteomyelitis, and this is Salmonella osteomyelitis. And then coming to animal bites, direct inoculation of the bacteria onto the bone, giving rise to acute osteomyelitis. And here the culprit is Pasteurella. And if the bite is none else than human, then the pathogen is Echinella, and this gives rise to Echinella osteomyelitis. So this is a depiction of pathogens found in case of osteomyelitis. Clinical features: acute onset fever with limb pain and swelling, that is the hallmark of acute osteomyelitis. And as the term applies, it's acute one, it comes as a bolt from the blue. The child, usually the patient, usually a child, was very well playful in the daytime, and maybe just suddenly he starts complaining pain. Maybe after some time there is localized swelling near to the joint in the metaphyseal region, and abruptly the temperature rises. This gives rise to a toxic child, usually that comes across in our practice. Usually we find there is history of trauma also forthcoming. The child was, he said, the child, if he is intelligent enough, he said that probably he received some sort of trauma, maybe hit by some lathi, hit by some stone pebbles or something like this. This history is very, very forthcoming, and then it reminds us locus minoris residentia. That means the history of trauma, or the trauma itself, has given rise to some decrease or lowering of local resistance in the tissue, usually the bone, and that is the reason why this bone is affected by osteomyelitis. And then we come across metaphyseal tenderness. It's so much tender, excruciating tender, that the child doesn't allow even the doctor to put his hand. So in nutshell, we can say that the clinical features is all acute onset feature, with child becoming toxic over a small period of time. Investigations. Let me tell that usually it's clinical picture which attracts our attention, and of course it should be supplemented by investigations. one has to, the treating surgeon or treating physician must be aware that children in this region, they are very, very exposed to developing acute osteomyelitis, and becoming aware of it is probably you have diagnosed the case. Still, blood investigations that show leukocytosis, that may be much more, maybe even 20,000, 25,000. Raised acute phase reactants you get in terms of raised ESR or C-reactive proteins. And a very important sensitive test is serum procalcitonin. Serum procalcitonin we get usually more than 0.4 nanogram per milliliter. It's a very, very sensitive test. Apart from this, the blood culture is positive in about 50% of cases. And then coming to X-rays. In initial part of acute osteomyelitis, it may be a perfectly normal picture, but as time passes, usually after 24 to 48 hours, usually in 24 to 48 hours, one can see the heaviness in the X-ray of the limb. And there is obliteration of soft tissue, Jones, and that is something which we see in 0 to 48 hours. And then mild new bone formation as periosteal elevation seen at about 10 days. Other investigations are bone scan, usually 24 to 48 hours. We find hot spots and the isotope we use is indium 111. Indium 111. This is being leveled on leukocytes, and these leukocytes find their way right at the spot and give rise to hot spots. Bone scans usually use technetium-99 or gallium-67. Usually in investigation of acute osteomyelitis, these are not used, rather we use indium-111. MRI is investigation of choice and gives earliest diagnosis. Bone aspiration and the test submitted to our Gram stains and culture and sensitivity. As per this research paper from Peltola and Vahanen, criteria, at these 4 criteria, out of these 4 criteria, if you have all these investigations negative, then we go across these 4 criteria, and any 2 criteria out of them is suggestive of osteomyelitis. And what is this? Pus aspirated from bone. If you could aspirate pus, even a single drop of pus from the bone, that's one criteria. Positive blood culture. If you have given, you have subjected the blood to blood culture, then, and if it's positive, that's one criteria. Classical clinical features. As I told you earlier, that clinical features, they are the real mainstay in the diagnosis of acute osteomyelitis. And of course, the radiological features. Radiological features are homogeneous picture, and maybe there is some amount of periosteal reaction in X-ray after 10 days of time. Then differential diagnosis. This is very, very important because we have a whole plethora of conditions which can mimic acute osteomyelitis, and they are acute septic arthritis, fracture in a newborn, even that can give rise to a picture mimicking acute osteomyelitis. Then Ewing's sarcoma or osteosarcoma. We will come later on when I tell this thing, that Ewing's sarcoma, of course that's a disease of the diaphyseal region that shows so much of febrile symptoms that one can confuse it with acute osteomyelitis, and similar is the case with osteosarcoma. Scurvy, of course not very much a clinical problem nowadays, but pain by subperiosteal hemorrhage. We find that in scurvy there is subperiosteal hemorrhage, and this gives rise to intense pain at the metaphyseal or similar region, and usually the child is hesitant enough to move that limb. That is known as pseudo-paralysis of Parrot. So these two things combined, it gives rise to a picture similar to acute osteomyelitis. Then acute rheumatic arthritis and juvenile rheumatic arthritis. Then sickle cell crisis. I mentioned earlier that sickle cell disease, when there is sickling phenomenon going on, then what happens? These sickle cells are entrapped in microvasculature. As I told you that because of hairpin bends, the bacteria which are seated in the metaphyseal region because of blood stasis and overpowering host immunity, they can start the inflammatory process of acute osteomyelitis. Likewise, these sickled cells, when entrapped in microvasculature, they give rise to intense pain. But the diagnostic feature is this will not show a positive blood culture. So this way we can diagnose that this is probably a case of acute osteomyelitis and not one of those conditions mentioned in the differential diagnosis. Then treatment. Being aware of this disease is very important. First of all, the treating surgeon or clinician must be aware that he might be dealing with a case of acute osteomyelitis. Because acute osteomyelitis is a picture when you have a window period of very less time when you can do something good. Once this has gone on to become chronic osteomyelitis, then probably you have lost the training. You have the patient is likely to have all the plethora of complications. So it's very important to diagnose at the right stage, at the earliest, and treat it accordingly. So being aware of this disease is very, very important. Supportive treatment is by sprinted, rest, IV fluids, and of course analgesics. You have to calm down the patient. Then broad spectrum antibiotics. Cephalosporins of third generation and fluoroquinolones are given by IV route, and the total control of infection needs at least 4 to 6 weeks of time. And surgery, when you don't get good results on medical treatment, then surgery is of course the treatment of choice, and what we do is draining of subperiosteal abscess and multiple gills or windows in metaphyseal region, and the whole idea is we want to decompress the metaphyseal region so that the pus, if at all formed or if likely to form during the treatment, must get a route to come out, and there is no increase in intra-medullary pressure, and the patient is relieved of symptoms. Of course, by medical treatment, we go on for 6 weeks to treat the condition. And then complications. Chronic osteomyelitis. We must know that acute osteomyelitis, if not adequately treated in time, gives rise to chronic osteomyelitis. And I will tell later on that what chronic osteomyelitis simply means. And simultaneously, I just want to tell you something about the relationship of osteomyelitis with arthritis. You see in this picture, the metaphyseal region is here and this is the capsule. There are conditions in human bone when, if this pus can find its way to the subperiosteal region, this can also find a way through the adjacent metaphyseal region to the joint capsule. And once pus finds its way into the joint capsule, what we call it is septic arthritis. Now it's no more acute osteomyelitis only. The moment this pus or infective process reaches the joint, now it has become a septic arthritis. So this in nutshell is the way why an acute osteomyelitis can become chronic septic arthritis. But in the same breath, I'd like to tell you that this growth rate, usually in children, this growth rate to a great extent, it's a barrier to the extension of pus. So in children, the likelihood of septic arthritis is only when the metaphyseal region is intracapsular, as in hip, or when the pus has found its way through this route. This is the route. But in adults, where there is no growth plate, so there is no barrier, so this pus can directly transgress to the joint space. So in children, this growth plate is a good barrier to infection. But even then, despite that, the pus can go on to the joint, and this can set the process of arthritis, septic arthritis. But in adults, where there is no growth plate, there can be direct extension of infective process within the joint, and a chronic septic arthritis can set in adults. Then multiple pyemic abscess. You know, osteomyelitis, or for that reason any infection, it's a struggle between host defensive processes and the invading organism. If there is less amount of immunity,